to Indic Academy. We are very privileged to speak with Christina, Kiki, Shakti today on our Swatantra Divas. And for all of you watching, she is the remarkable daughter of a very remarkable mother. Known very fondly as Ramrani for all of us in Indic circles. And we owe her a huge debt for taking the truth about Bharat to the US and to other countries in the world. Thank you so much, Christina, for being here with us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Everything that I can do in my life right now is to further her work. You know, that's all. I think that her mission was very important, and I want to be a part of continuing her life's work.
I think children have that legacy, and we owe it to our parents and maybe even our ancestors to some extent to be able to preserve for whatever sacrifices that they made to our country. And we are grateful to you for setting apart in this journey to make this film. And from Indic Academy, we would like to support you in any and every which way to make sure that her work, which is of immense significance, is preserved and available for all those who are either misguided about what is an Indian identity or a Hindu identity.
I mean, I think to my mother, and you know, again, this was her life's work. She was given a mission by our guru, Neem Karoli Baba. He said, Ramrani, when you go back to America, you study and you work to make India and Hinduism better understood and respected, period. And she did. You know, I have it here. I have this photo. So I have this photo of, she would do like India Day when I was in school. So this is me in, I think this is the 4th grade when she came to, because she was a teacher, right? So she was very involved in my education. And so she would come and she would dress us up in saris and she would like talk about India and try to make it less, you know, especially back then, it was like in the 80s and 90s, it was very, and even before that, you know, there was a lot of misconceptions about India and about Hinduism and stuff like that, you know, like she wrote she has an entire paper or series of papers, I'm not sure, about like the Temple of Doom, like Indiana Jones, and the way that they portrayed Hinduism there, where they were like Shakti Ma, and they like rip out the heart and eat monkey heads and stuff like that. And I'm like, and that's my name, like Shakti is my name. So I'm like, yeah, I don't think so. I mean, it's a fun movie for a movie, but as far as the way that it portrays the people, it's not at all realistic, and it's very racist as far as I'm concerned, and I think as far as my mother was concerned. And so that's one of the things that she, you know, really railed against. And it's really about like how we in the West talk and teach about India. Like that is the thing that she was really working towards fixing, you know, like let's not make these stereotypes, because that's not reality, you know. Like she knew after, you know, years or decades of living in India that like like I was saying before, that like most people in the West don't know that most people in India are polyglots. Like they just don't know. They're like, oh, they all speak this weird Sanskrit language. But that's not true. like most people in India speak, between like 3 and 6 languages or whatever, and even more, like, and in the US, like people don't even think about that. They've never even heard that idea, that like even like the most poor, person on the street probably speaks more languages than they do. I mean, that's the reality of the streets. And so to me, that's like one small snippet but it's a really good example of like the misconceptions that my mom was trying to like clarify or, uh, like be like, hey, wait a second here. Like we're not teaching about India correctly, and let's like maybe have a more nuanced and diverse conversation about it. And so again, she would come to my school. Here we go. She would come to my school like every year we would have like India Day, sponsored by my mom because she was, a teacher, but she was very involved in my education. And she was like, I'm going to come and I'll do an India Day. And she would talk to my teachers about it. And of course, my teachers were stoked. They were like, yes, come do this thing. And I was like, that was like the one day that I was like, oh, this is cool, because otherwise, growing up in the 80s in the United States, like I felt very weird being a Hindu. Like I felt very ostracized, and I used to pretend that I was Christian just to get by, because kids are mean when you're different, And so I remember I even like raised my hand one time when the teacher asked who was Christian. And that was a weird thing too. The teacher was like, who here is Christian? And who hears this? And who hears that? And I was like, oh, I'm Christian. And my friend goes, no, you're not. And I was like, oh, no, I am. Don't out me, girl. I was like, wait a second. But we used to say when we would come to, when I was a kid, and this, was a long time ago, and some things have changed, but some things have not. But when I was a kid and we would come here where I live now in Taos, New Mexico, to come to the ashram here for Karoli Baba's Mahasamadhi Bandara, we would say, oh, it's my grandpa's birthday.
No.
Just to like be like, oh, we're not weird Hindus. We're not strange, like we're totally normal. Like we're in, and so now things are changing here in the US as far as that's concerned, kind of. But I do think that it's important to spread the story of this, like, this subculture that I was raised in, where like, I'm like a white girl from America who was raised Hindu. My brother's name is Hanuman. My other brother's name is Amar. Like, those are not common names. My middle name is Shakti, and I think that there's no accident that I was named that. I think my mom knew what she was doing when she named me Christina Shakti. So to me, it means a lot that we continue to educate people about like these are the actual, and it's so diverse. Santana Dharma is so diverse. So like you could be an atheist and be a Hindu, like you can do a lot of different, you have a lot of different types of beliefs and be a Hindu. And I think that people in the West are so like kind of black and white, and like we can introduce some nuance to how we describe people of other cultures. And I think that will help us to bridge this East-West divide that we are really, I think, all of us are trying to mend, like the idea that we're all like, as my mom would say, same but different. Um, I mean, it's true. You cut a person open and they bleed red and their bones are white. It doesn't matter the color of their skin or what their beliefs were or anything like that. And that's really the message that I'm trying to get through with this film that I'm making about my mom. Is like that's the ultimate core message. Is that, and also one of my mom's favorite things about Santana Dharma is the hymn of creation from the Rig Veda. And I don't have the words in front of me, I'm sorry. But
This is the third, Krishna, this is the third day I'm hearing the hymn. I heard it
oh,
day
for real?
before. Yeah, I heard it day before on a talk on Devdasis and how they would create art for the gods. Yesterday, there was a course on Patanjali's Yoga Sutras where he spoke about this hymn. Then, now today is the third day we are talking about the hymn of creation.
Well, in the film, I really want to talk about one part of it because the way that my mom would describe it, and the thing is a lot of it is kind of like about like how my mom would describe it. My glasses are a little crooked. They're bothering me.
Nasadiya Suktam.
But the way that my mom would talk about it is she would say, well, the hymn of creation in the Rig Veda is very similar to Genesis from the Bible. In Genesis, it's the word, God said, let there be light. And in the Rig Veda, it's the breath, the pranayam. It's like, and then, this and this and that, and the oceans were created, and the animals were created, and the firmaments, and the blah blah blah, and and then the people, and blah blah blah. But then in the end, instead of being, jowed from Eden, in the end of the Rig Veda, in the hymn of creation in Rig Veda, it says, well, and I'm not, this is not a direct quote, but I'm basically paraphrasing. But it's like, well, this is how the universe was created, but maybe only God knows. But maybe even God doesn't know.
Yeah.
And to my mom, and also to me, because of the way she taught me, like, it's like, go and do your philosophical studies, go figure it out for yourself, do some research, like, not like in a conspiratorial way, even like, just like, go and be, and don't, it's just a much more open and like free kind of way of being, in as far as I'm concerned. And I think that that's what really like drew my mom into this, because she was like super not into like all of the dogma of all the bullshit from Christianity. Either this or you're going to hell, like, she was not into that. And she raised me to also not believe that at all. So I think that that was a really cool thing that she liked to talk about, because it just gives you a lot of freedom to like explore the universe and reality for yourself,
Yeah.
So
There's a article by her called "Imagining Jambudvipa," and there I'm just quoting what she says. She says, "I'm not a Sanskritist or a classical Indologist. I'm simply a student of India presenting some of the paradigms that restrict understanding, with the hope that this preliminary discussion will encourage further dialogue. In so doing, and with all due respect, perhaps it can partially take apart a few of the shared assumptions of the theoretical constructs that have, with dexterous intellectual aplomb, taken India apart during the last few decades." So, does this summarize what was her life's?
I'm curious what you think that means.
Um, I think that Indologists and students of serious Western students of India think they knew what India was about and made all these constructs about India. And because they knew Sanskrit, they knew the texts. But I think with her personal engagement with India, she found that there was something more to understand beyond these constructs, that these Indologists, who most often than not came to India, took the wisdom from Indian scholars and interpreted it with their Western understanding of it and took credit for it and did not give any credit whatsoever to the Indian scholars of the text.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. Yeah, I think that you are correct. So you said
So
it a little
what
better than I did.
So what can you do now, Christina? How can you portray this in a visual form? I mean, a lot of it is going to be a little controversial, and is going to create a little bit of unrest in the Western academic community.
I don't.
So how can you
Let's
do it as a bold?
have rest. Honestly, like, I don't really care about that. Like what I care about most is to tell the story of her adventures in India, which includes tons of, tragedy and miracles, and then also to continue her life's work. Of course, the through line of the film is my story, and that ends up, I think, in the end being the most important part, which is also the most universal part of like losing a parent. My mom and I actually had a really hard relationship. Even though I loved her with everything, it was hard sometimes for us to get along. And and I do know that she went through so we will touch on her early life before she came to India, which, was very traumatic, to say the least. Um, she was she was abused in a lot of ways. And the way that she overcame that was actually magnificent. But it it's like the story of the little Dutch boy who puts his fingers in the levee and he can only hold so much. And so my mom was trying with everything she had to hold the levee, and it leaked out to us, to me and my brothers. And the bigger story of the film is that it's basically about healing generational trauma. So when I heal myself and I, go to therapy or I do meditation or I do whatever it is that helps me to be a happy, well-rounded person in this world who is doing good things in the world, I heal myself, then I heal my mother and my grandfather, who was also very traumatized from being a war hero, and my grandmother, who was traumatized by being subjugated by the Nazis during the war in Belgium. So like all of these things kind of come together in a visual landscape, for the film. My ideas are to talk about like the hippie trail, which is like all these Westerners coming to India in the 60s and 70s, which is like a very short period of time. Like it's like very short, as far as like Alexander coming and being driven by the elephants and the sadhus, and the drums, boom, 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 shankar, but like really, like there was a very short period of time where like people from the West could go overland in cars and buses and motorcycles to get to India. And it happened a lot. And that was like a very big subcultural thing. So I want to talk about that a little bit in the film. And like those experiences and my mom's particular experiences, like her boyfriend dying in her arms, and she watched his soul leave his body. And then there's a whole story associated with that, which is like gonna blow your mind for real. Like about, Goenkaji Vipassana was like, oh yes, I was told blah blah blah. Like that's like a crazy story. And then she met Neem Karoli Baba, and he just gave her this like an electric jolt of unconditional love. That's basically what I get from everyone that I talk to in my life, being raised in this satsang. Like the stories of the people who met Neem Karoli Baba are like, yeah, no matter what, it was like electric jolt of unconditional love. Like you touch his feet and you get like unconditional. That's why they were like, please give it to me. We've never felt this before because we're from the West, or I don't really know, but like everyone I've ever known, and this is my whole life, have stories, right? And they have miracles associated with them. And so like there's one about some money. Like my mom had some American Express traveler's checks that she would send that she got, and she like didn't look, and she would just like pull one out and like cash it. And then after a while, after like several months of this happening, she was like, okay, maybe I'll take them all out and I'll count them and then know how much money I have. All of the traveler's checks were still there. And that same day, Neem Karoli Baba, he said it in Hindi, and I can't say it because I don't really speak Hindi. But he said, did you get your money? And my mom freaked out. She thought that the American Express was going to come after him. Wait a second, no, be quiet about this, And there's like little things like that that I want to talk about a bit in the film, just like to like give an impression of like what this was like for people. And then we're going to get into Sanatana Dharma and like, what is it really? Like is, I don't want to get political or anything like that, but I definitely want to talk about like the hymn of creation from the Rig Veda, the Gayatri mantra, and like, a couple of other different things that my mom she liked to talk about with me and with other people that I've been around with, and to really like explain Hinduism in a way that is not this Western stupid perspective that is so, first of all, biased and also uneducated. So it's about educating people. And I think that the through line of this universal story of just grieving your mother, like she was amazing. And so when she died, I went to India, and it was the first time in my life that I went to India by myself. I wasn't by myself, but like without my mom being there, like pick me up at the airport, right? Or to speak Hindi, because I don't speak Hindi, or I can say like "Toda toda," that's about it. Like yeah, hey, that's about it. I don't really speak Hindi, and so like getting around, I was like, I can do this. I was like, I can do this. And I went with my aunt, my mom's younger sister, and we did it. Like, I very much felt, I was like, oh no, there's going to be so much red tape. I'm going to have to deal with cops, and they're going to be mean to me. That's just what I thought. And then we got there, and it was almost like Ganapati Ji was like in the road, like pushing the obstacles out of the way, and everything that we had to do, we got done. And And then I was in Kenchidam, and I was at my friend Girish's house across the street from the ashram, and I was like looking at the ashram where my mom had spent a good amount of time. And I myself also in India have spent a good amount of time there. And I was like, you know what? Because, let me go back. There's the story of when Maharaj-ji gave my mom the name Ramrani. He was like, Ramrani is your name. Your name's Ramrani. And this is all in Hindi. And the translator was like, Babaji, don't you mean Ram Ki Rani?
Oh.
Maharaj-ji said, Ram Ki Rani nahi, Ram Rani. And then he like reached out his hand. All right, I'm trying to do it. Reached out his hand to her cheek, and he said, Mary Ram Rani.
Oh.
And so that's the name of the movie, because it's my Ramrani, my Ramrani. And that meant so much to her. But also, like, she's my Ramrani. Like, she's my mom. She's mine. She belongs to me. And then, so that was my thought process. I was standing on the roof, and I was looking at the ashram, and I was like, you know what? She's my Ramrani. And then I was like, but there are so many people in this world who have a my Ramrani story, you know? And I want to tell those stories. You know, I think that is really important, not just for me and for the people who knew her, because I know it's important for other people besides me. You know, people who knew her are like, oh yes, please tell this story. But I think that it could be a really good film for people of a variety of demographics who are into yoga, or who are into Hinduism, or who are wanting to learn more, just whatever, or people who are grieving their parents, you know, like, it's going to be a film that has all of those components. And visually, you were asking me about it visually, so my idea is that we're going to have a variety of styles. So it's going to be so we're going to use, I have a bunch of archive footage of interviews with her. And then we also have some archive footage from when I first went to India when I was 13 years old in 1992. We had like a VHS, a big, like, we brought this thing with us, like a big VHS camcorder. And so I have a bunch of that footage that I really want to use. But when I'm talking about the stories, for instance, about like her boyfriend who died in her arms when she was 19, when they fell down a mountain is what happened, and he died, and she was injured, but he died like in her arms. And she has a story about it because it very much affected her for the rest of her life, clearly, as it would. But so when we do that kind of story, or when Maharaj-ji gives her the name Ramrani, stuff like that, we're not going to do any reenactments or anything like that. We're going to do animated sequences. So I want it to look like, I'm going to say classic Indian comic books, because I don't want to say Amar Charitra Katha, but that style of art, right? Like, so I want to do like cartoons so we'll have people narrating it with the interviews, and then we'll use cartoons like the old classic Indian comic book. Not Amar Charitra Katha, because it's not. It's just, classic. Anyhow, I think that's to avoid any kind of copyright incurred. Anyway, so that's going to be like all of those stories that happened in that time, or different things that happened around like her life story will be in cartoon, like in that animated style. And then whenever we talk about Hinduism as like just by itself without my mom's story infused on it, like let's say we're talking about the Ramayana or we're talking about Bhagavad Gita or something like that, I want to use shadow puppets. So that's a different visual aspect, right? And then when I'm talking about my own journey, grieving my mother, like I have this idea. There was a point right after she died, where I felt like her power, like her life force, was being infused into mine, and I felt it in my arms and in like going towards my heart, like almost like wings, right? And so I want to do a stop frame animation to express that visually with like construction paper, like pink and white construction paper, like a heart, and then the wings kind of weave into it like that, right? So I'm creating that. And so visually, we've got all, and then we want to go to India and interview people, and we can get some B-roll of how beautiful India is too. I mean, it's freaking amazing. It's like incredibly beautiful. So just to like show that and to have all of these different like visual aspects, I think will make it a beautiful tapestry of a story of humanity, like crossing cultures, same but different. We're all one. And basically in the end, there's an open-ended question, like, who are we really? Like my friend the other day, literally last weekend, I was feeling very sad about my mom and my dad. Both of them are dead. And I was just like really missing them. And my friend said, I don't know, but I feel like maybe your mom is here with us. And I've had this thought in my head, like, what would she look like if she was here with us? And in my mind's eye, I could see her sitting here, like sitting with me, but she looked like she did when she was old. And then she also looked like she did when she was like, who are we really? Are we this person when we're old? It was almost like thumbing through like a photo album really fast, in my mind's eye of like this person. And it was like her as a grown up, going all the way back to her being a baby, because all these photos I've seen of her, right? And then going back and like kind of like that, And so visually, like, who really are we? Who are our parents? Who are we? Who how we can't actually nail it down, right? It's always going to be in motion. It's always going to be changing. But really, like that was one part of it. But the end all be all of the story of the film, I think, is that we're all one. The dictate of Neem Karoli Baba is he never said sing 11 chalisas, which we do at the ashram very often. He never said, give to the poor or anything like that. What he said was, love all, serve all, feed all, remember God, and tell the truth. Those are the only things. And to me, and I think to a lot of his devotees, and definitely to my mom, it has like a social justice aspect, like, why are people hungry? What can we do to feed all? What can we do to serve all? When he says love all, he doesn't mean love the people that you agree with. He means love all, right? Like, what does that mean? What does that look like in our reality on this planet right now? And to me, it means same, but different. We're all here. We're all different from one another. Even in the West, everyone is different. In India, everyone is different. We're all here being the same, cut us open, we bleed. We all want love. We all want our families to be safe. We all want to eat good food. We all want to enjoy the people that we love in our lives. Like, we all want the same things. So I think what was his name? Ravi, I feel like it was Ravi Kumar. I could be wrong. There might be some people correct me. Please correct me because I can't remember. He was very young, and he was with Neem Karoli Baba when he um, left his body. But he had a really cool thing to say about, love all, serve all, feed all, remember God, tell the truth. Like, what does that mean in daily action? And I think to my mother, she taught me about, I'm very civically minded. I'm very politically interested. I think that it's really important to do your best to help as many people in the world as you can. And that's really what it's about. Love all, serve. Yeah, that's a very esoteric, like, you could make it be whatever. But when it comes down to actual physical life, love all, serve all, feed all, remember God, tell the truth, it has a very distinct meaning in like a social justice arena. And I think that that's a really important aspect of her work that I and also just, negating there's so much racism and misunderstanding when it comes to India and Hinduism that my mom was just like, she would get so angry about it because she was just like, these people are just, they don't even understand. They're just not even giving, they're so like anti-Hindu and this and that. And so I think that, I don't know, I want to make a film that isn't just about my mom, but it's about the work that she was actively pursuing in her life.
One of the things.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
One of the things was this work she did on textbooks with working on textbooks which were there in Pakistan and in other countries, and
That was
how Hinduism is treated. Yeah. So could you tell us about that?
Yeah, that was her dissertation when she got her doctorate degree. She spent a long time in India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, and I still have in my room over here, like I have a ton of secondary school textbooks from Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh that she went through, and she tried to point out how, because this is a major part of her work. She was a teacher. She was a language and social studies teacher, and so she was very interested in, you know, history and how the way that we teach history is filtered through our ideologies, right? So the way that we talk about Hinduism in Pakistan is going to be very different, and the history of it too is going to be very different from the way we talk about it in India, right? And and so it was a comparative study of social studies textbooks from India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. And she had to rewrite her dissertation a number of times because of the anti-Hindu sentiment in the United States. She kept having to rewrite her dissertation to kind of placate her advisory board, um, be less like pro-Hindu, and I don't think that she liked that very much. I thought that she thought she was right the first time, which she probably was, in my view. I think that she probably was. Knowing I'm certainly not an expert. Like I am not an expert when it comes to Sanskrit or, the Upanishads or any of that. Like I'm not. I'm more of a let's read Dune kind of thing, or like let's fiction a little bit more. But my mom, the academic, she really, I think, was right in her perspective on, the way that India and particularly Hinduism is portrayed is through this like Western filter that just distorts everything. It's like a Western colonial filter that even in India, people are like, oh, but we have this Western colonial filter of hundreds of years that we're just trying to get through, right? So I don't know. I have like my one friend from India, he lives in California now, but he was like, yeah, I'm still trying to get through the colonial perspective against myself. And I just thought that was really interesting, like that's another part of it is like India has so much to offer to the world, and Hinduism as a religion and a philosophy, like a spiritual philosophy, is beautiful. Like that's basically what I'm trying to portray. It's like
So was it a difficult choice for her, Christian, to be, there are a few chosen people who are put in the path and who have that self-realization and their guru tells them this is what they have to do. And there's absolutely the absolute clarity within themselves. But they also have the other side with responsibility for three children in the US and, their pressures of earning a living. So was she conflicted by that? One, there's absolutely the, her mission
I
for India.
I don't think she was conflicted by that at all. I think that she had such a belief in what she was doing that she didn't care what other people thought. And my brothers and I, we were raised also to kind of be like that. So, like, okay, I mean, sure, like I know it was hard for her, like raising three children, going to grad school, becoming a doctor, getting her doctoral degree and all that. Like that was not easy and it took her a long time. But I think it was so worth it for her to try to make a difference in the world and then teaching us that we could do that, like to her, I don't think that was hard at all. I think that was actually the most important thing to her.
That's fantastic, and it's lovely that you're going to capture that. So, where does this film, where will it fit in your own film career? Vis-a-vis your earlier films, and which seem to be very in a different mold.
Yeah, I'm not a doc. I mean, I have a full-time job. I work for a really great organization here in Taos called True Kids One. And we do all sorts of stuff, but basically my job is to make really short documentaries with kids. And we talk about media, we talk about phones, we talk about screen time and depression, anxiety, all this stuff that has nothing to do with the movie. But it's an awesome job and I really love it. So I get to basically I work with star students who are just really engaged, and I get to work with the best teenagers that are in this town. And that's really great. But, I feel like as far as the movie is concerned, hold on, what was the question?
How does this film work with vis-a-vis your professional?
Oh,
films.
well, so that's my like day job.
Yeah.
And then, so I do make quite a few documentaries, like
Mm.
kind of all the time. And they're usually pretty short and student made and this and that.
Mm.
But my professional, like my dreams, my big dreams, I have at least two different like fictional narrative pieces
Mm.
that I would like to make, and then also a TV show based on a book from an author here in Taos named Sean Murphy. And he's a Zen Buddhist practitioner and teacher, but he also wrote these books called The Hope Valley Hubcap King and The Time of New Weather, which he's
Mm.
given me the option to write a
Mm.
series screenplay for. And so that's a little bit on the back burner since I've been trying to make this documentary about my mom. But then I have another movie called Time Stretchers, which is like, I call it a psychedelic rom-com. And then there's another movie that's kind of the same as the documentary based on my mom's life, but it's a little bit more personal about like the three generations of women. So there's like the mother who's my mom, and then me who's called the daughter, and then the grandmother who's my grandmother, and it's their stories told kind of in this like epic, narrative fictionalized version of the stories, and that's all about like spiritual discovery. And like the daughter is atheist and the grandmother is Catholic who becomes an agnostic, and then the mother goes off to India and finds Hinduism, and it all kind of comes together. And so I have a lot of different movies that I want to make. Um, but this documentary just has to come now because it can then be the jumping board for the other films, because to me, I I think the biggest urgency with it is that I thought that I would have more time to make a movie about my mom because her story is so cool. It's like so interesting and just so cool. And then she died. And all of the people who were there in India with her in like 1970, like no one's getting any younger. You know what I mean? Like I have wrinkles on my neck. Like I'm not getting any younger. You know what I mean? Like like there's a woman who I scheduled a bunch of time for these interviews. We had a big festival at the ashram here and people were coming, and I was like, hey, while you're here, let's do some interviews for the movie. And then Sita Sharon had a stroke, and then a few days later she passed away. And she's one person that I really wanted to interview, and now I can't. And I know that's selfish. Like I'm not trying to be selfish. I'm genuinely grieving her, but also just for myself, like people that I want to talk to on film are not getting any younger. Like there's an urgency to this to me. Because I want to get their stories before I can't anymore, you know? So to me, that's a really big deal. That's the
We're all
urgency.
really, yeah, we're looking forward to the film. And strangely, yesterday, a filmmaker from your part of the world, from Texas, shared a movie, Christina. It's not yet released, but it's about an American biker who meets with an accident on the road, and he sees this Shakti slash Devi figure, a young girl, sitting across him. She's of course Indian, and he has this vision, and how from this he turns to Devi worship and Devi upasana, because a string of incidents follow this, where he is introduced to a guru, and he comes to India and he turns to Devi worship. So, uh, And the rest of his family, like he said, when they visit, he hides all the devis in a uh, loft upstairs because they're not comfortable with all these vigrahas and murtis. So maybe I'll share that film. I'll ask the
Please,
filmmaker.
I would love to see it. I
Yeah,
would
it's
love to see the movie.
so
That's
much with
really
what
cool.
you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, so I'm really, I think a lot of people are thinking about these things, about the ideas that Hinduism can offer to the world and how the world can be a better place because of these values of oneness and acceptance and tolerance that much needed in today's world.
I agree. I mean, I think that that was one of the things that, my mother really hammered into me was like the values of Sanatana Dharma are to her and what she taught me, like if there's 8 billion people, there's 8 billion faces of God. We all have divinity within us. We all can share that with each other, like it doesn't matter if you love Shiva or Krishna or Jesus or, whatever. What matters is the way you connect with the world. Do you, you know, do you love all, serve all, feed all, remember God and tell the truth? And to me, God is a very bad descriptor for what they're trying to say, right? For the divinity that lives within all of us and in all of us and in everything around us, right? So those are the values that I was taught. And I think that those are some really exceptionally important values to share with the world and to try to uplift in this world that we live in right now. And any time. If we lived 300 years ago, it would still be important. If we lived 300
I
years
think,
ago, it would be important.
I think that's the meaning of Sanatana. I think it's, the eternal philosophy, perennial philosophy.
Yeah,
Hmm.
definitely.
Thank you so much, Krishna. It was such a pleasure speaking with you.
I'm so pleased.
Yeah.
Um,
And
if anyone, if you want to share this, if anyone would like to go to, I actually have two. The same website has two. There's Meri Ramrani, Meri Ramrani, and it's also myramrani.com. You can go to our website. You can learn more about the movie. I haven't updated it in a while. I might need to look at it again soon. But we've started shooting interviews. I've got like 5. Technically I've done 3 for real interviews and 2 test interviews. But I'm trying to get interviews with her friends who were there with her. Like, for instance, when English Jerry, her boyfriend, died in her arms, there were people there who are still friends with her when she died, who were in contact with me. So I need to get like the funds to get that. I have an amazing editor. Let me just tell you a little bit about her. Her name is Jen Rupp, and she teaches editing at NYU Tisch School for the Arts, the film school. She's amazing. And the day I met her, I was telling her about the film, and I was like, could you please maybe help me find an editor? Blah, blah, blah. Of course, I was wanting her to be my editor, but I was gonna just outright ask her. I was kind of like, maybe you could recommend someone, blah, blah. And she was asking me about the movie and the story and this and that. And then she was like, yeah, I would love to cut this movie for you. And then the next day, she flew to Cannes for a film that she had edited. And I was like, this seems like a good sign. And she's so lovely. She's so smart. And then I also have Jayu Tal has sat for an interview for us just this past April. But he also said that I could use any of his music that I want in the movie for free, basically. And what a gift. Thank God for him. Jai Uttal is such a gem on this earth. And then we have also an original music composer who's originally from Greece, Eleni Lomverdou, she's won multiple awards for her film score compositions, and she's just amazing. And I have distribution for the film already through my mentor in Spain, Paco Pac, who is a prolific. He's from Catalonia. He's a prolific Catalan filmmaker. Like, if you go to Barcelona and you are in film circles and you say the name Paco Pac, like, people will be like, oh yeah, that guy. And he already said, like, I'll get you distribution in Spain. So we have all of these things for the film. I have producers in India. I have producers here in America. I have producers in Spain. I have, like, all of these things are coming together, and we just need to raise a few more funds. I also have it's a fiscal sponsor, and the name of the organization is locology.org. They're a local to New Mexico 501c3 organization that is acting as a fiscal sponsor. So basically, if you're in the United States and you have a lot of money and you'd rather not pay taxes, you can give to this movie and then write it off as a tax deduction. And then Locology will take 5% because that's kind of a normal, routine, commonplace way to fund films. But it's to have, like, that flow through like that, the fiscal sponsor. But so we have that, and so we can offer a tax deduction to any donation. And we're just trying. Our next move is when my director of photography, Issa Stewart, comes back. She's visiting her mother in Sweden right now. But when she comes back in September, we're going to try to get started shooting more interviews in New Mexico, Colorado, and Texas. And then there's a few in California. There's a bunch of people who live in California who knew my mom back then. And then we got to go to India. I want to talk to the Tiwari family, Champa and Girish and Naresh, who live across the street from the ashram in Kanchidham, because they're, like, some of my mom's best oldest friends. And I want to talk to them about, like, what she was like back then, and then how she was in their lives. And then I want to talk to, General G.D. Bakshi is a really good friend of ours, and he's just such a cool guy, man. He's so interesting. And he and my mom were, like, pretty good buds. And then, Ravi Joshi and Vinod Joshi, and there's just, like, a bunch of people that I want to interview in India. And so that's going to take, for me to bring me and my crew and our equipment. And even if we rent we're going to have to rent equipment anyway. So, like, all of that is going to take, like, quite a bit of money. And so we're just really looking for people who maybe have a little bit, who want to donate to the project and to be a part of it, to make it happen, because I can't fund the whole thing by myself, unfortunately. I wish I was rich, but I'm not. So I am hoping that there are some people who think that this is a worthwhile project to fund. And if they are in the United States, then they could write it off on their taxes. That's really the only thing I can offer. I hope this movie can make some kind of profits, but what's more important to me for sure is just to get it in front of as many eyeballs as possible, so that because my goal with this film is to open minds by entering through the heart. Like the story of a mother-daughter relationship, the story of all these adventures and miracles and but then like you get this education also, like, oh, it's a story about a mother-daughter. It's a story about the hippie trail, but really it's an educational, informative thing that's going to teach you about Hinduism and about the hymn of creation in the Rig Veda and about the Gayatri mantra and about blah, blah, blah. So like all of these things come together to like open your mind, enter the mind by going through the heart. And so that I think is the way that films work in a way that is kind of beautiful, and also why I've always wanted to be a filmmaker. But, to me, I think that is critical to our success.
I'm sure it'll be the best tribute to Ramrani. And
she better be proud of me. I would do anything for her. She would do anything for me as my mother and as her daughter. I just think that she was so amazing, and I think that her story needs to be told in this educational and informative way, because she wouldn't want anything else. She would be really upset with me if it was just like fairies and dust. It has to have some conclusive educational format, or my mom's she'll haunt me for the rest of my life.
I think she's listening.
Probably.
Yeah, thank you so much. Such a lovely conversation, and all the very best. And I hope you get the funds that you need very, very soon.
I hope so too. And anyone who wants to go, again, it's myramrani.com. You can donate on PayPal, or you can email me at film@kikiloveproductions.com, and we can work out the locology thing. Like, I'm serious. Like, there's got to be some people out there who feel like this is a worthwhile story to tell. And come on, anyone here, anyone watching, some people maybe. Let them know about this movie. Tell them how good it's going to be, especially visually, like with the animations and everything. I'm so excited about the visual expression of, like, the creative visual expression of what we're going to be talking about. To me, is really exciting, and it's a really good way to like get the message across and educate people. Like, people have such a short attention span at this point. Like, boom, 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 boom. Here's some cartoons, and we're going to go into this now. I really think that, but then like the ideas will stick. I think that that's a good way to do it. And I think that can build some bridges, some cross-cultural bridges that in the future could be incredibly important for geopolitics. Like, who knows?